Thank you very much. EES is very much on the ground, hands and feet, trying to make a difference, not necessarily with just the clean air. We also deal with water and waste as well. But basically, our market approach is commercial and industrial clients, and I have a background as a CFO in Moscow, so Dobre Utro, Kaktala, since we were storming Moscow earlier. But we approach the equation from a financial perspective. I think Phil may have mentioned that earlier. I think also Billy made that comment earlier, that approaching it from a financial sector or a financial equation is probably the best approach to change behavior. Because culturally, Tennessee is different than New York, for that matter. In fact, culturally, Tennessee is very, very polite. One of the ironic things is in New York, we do a lot of work in the Northeast, and they'll just tell you what they're thinking. And from my perspective, a yes is the best answer. A quick no is the second best answer, because I can move on. Tennessee is very polite, so I get these slow no's, which is absolutely the worst answer. Gives you a little history last year in particular. We were saving, on average, of all our clients, about 30% of the electrical load. We find grants between 10 and 55% is very, very common. A lot of the grants and the incentives are prescriptive, not percentage, but on average it ranges in that area. We have one project right now in Maine where the total grant adds to 105%. Of course, the grantors are not going to allow that, and nor should they. But so sometimes we hit some home runs. It's a very easy sell when you tell them that it's a $2.2 million project and you have to pay $200,000. It doesn't take much. Average payback is around 2.6 years. Give you the international perspective. The last 15 years or so, I've been overseas in Europe and in the Caribbean. But a key point that this is kind of in reaction and response to yesterday's conversations. Here's the electrical loads. If you look at the U.S. versus the Europeans, we are a little bit more than 2 times the electrical loads. It's the 1990 through 2008 look. It's been pretty flat, but there is a great deal of improvement. The question I naturally would ask is, are Europeans less comfortable in their position and in their quality of life than Americans? And in general, I think they're not 2 times worse, for sure. So maybe there's something that we can learn from over in Europe. By the way, most of our technologies that we're bringing are European technology, engineered over there, made in America. This gives a little bit of population growth. 2008, we were the largest U.S. energy user, and this is measured in kWh. China has surpassed us in 2010, so we are no longer the energy hog of the world. Also, you can see the growth in a per capita basis in China, so they are really moving up the scale. It gives you a little bit of information. Perspective. People talk about, why are you only working in the commercial industrial space? Well, this graph maybe will give you a little bit of data. It's from a McKinsey study. This is right when I was jumping out of being a CEO and a CFO for global companies to a really small businessman in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But part of the motivation is 40% of now this is in BTUs, so there's a little going back and forth on the international data, but in the United States, 40% of the energy used is industrial. 25% is commercial and residential. Now, the interesting thing here is the bottom part. There are about 330,000 entities, enterprises in the commercial. So the conversation to get that 40% reduction in energy is only about 330,000 conversations. If I jump over, it's about 5 million buildings owned by about 3 million decision makers. Again, so it's about 10 times. But if I want to concentrate on the residential side, it's 130 million homes. It's a lot of conversations. So as an accountant by trade and an underwriter, I'm saying, where can I make the most impact? Quickest. It's industrial and then commercial. And we'll talk about a little bit about policy in a little bit, how that impacts. This is a graph basically saying the size of the circle is the opportunity. Again, there's a little business judgment in some of this. This is not my business judgment. It happens to be McKinsey that did the study for us before jumping into this space. But the bottom left hand is, or the bottom half is the proven technologies. These solutions exist now. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The top part is more of emerging. The expense part, so you're always looking at denominators and numerators. The expense, the further out to the right, the more probability. So greater risk out to the right and less risk as you move closer. I did put, and you can't see here too well, but combined heat and power is very, very proven. And it's moderately expensive. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. There's 675 potential loads in a house or a business. The best element, I wish I brought my phone up, is going to be a phone or a laptop way over on the left hand. The right side is basically going to be commercial refrigeration. One of the things we do in analyzing a building is we look at the utility bills for a year and we compare that to weather patterns. And we can tell, is it the process in the building that is using the electrical loads, or is it the building envelope? And if it patterns to the weather, we know it's a building envelope. So we're just having a little bit of analytics beforehand. Now we'll talk a little bit, in our background, we talk about greater good and lesser, or, there's sometimes an evolutionary process. CHP on a utility scale uses an immense amount of water. TVA's best utility process produces energy at 51% efficient. It has about 6% line loss in that equation. It uses a good deal of water, pumps up steam generates a two-cycle. The older versions are about 34-35% efficient, in that range. I'm looking at it. You can shake your head if I'm right or wrong, but I believe this is right. I go to these engineering clubs, and it's loaded with TVA folks, and so I get to gather all this great deep data. On-site engineering, on-site CHP, combined heat and power. Our first clue to this was an aquarium not too far from our office, and they had a backup generator within just a few feet of a boiler burning gas. Well, the financial equation is real simple in this case. Take that boiler, put the natural gas, put a generator that can run 24/7. Your byproduct is electricity, but you're keeping your fish comfortable, right? In fact, you produce so much that you can do a three-phase CHP solution. You can cool the building as well with a big, in this case, a chiller. So it's very efficient. Energy efficiency on that particular solution is about 93 to 94% compared to a delivery point of TVA at about 45 at the best that TVA has in the same type of solution. So CHP is a wonderful thing. There's conversations we have with our folks, particularly another aquarium down in Florida that says, well, what about fracking? And truth of the matter is, I'm an accountant, so I don't know if I have an educated opinion on it, but it is clearly half the carbon emissions of coal, and so maybe it's a step in the evolutionary process. EPA does have water standards that we have not talked about, which will be imposed upon utilities. So there's a step one and a step two. So maybe there's an evolutionary process to this clean energy, because this will not be the ultimate, even for the utility, because of the amount of water that CHP uses, or nuclear for that matter. I mean, at the highest point of, when we have those very, very hot days in the Tennessee Valley, they have to basically stop using the Tennessee River because they're overheating the river on the nuclear site. So it is problematic at the worst point in time. So from a risk management perspective, nuclear is not always the best answer. Although I did notice that's our solution from a policy perspective. Here's some success stories. I'm sorry, originally I did not have a PowerPoint. Everybody had PowerPoints yesterday, so I created this last night. So all I'm doing is giving you marketing material. So I apologize ahead of time for this. But Toronto Plastics Company, very interesting. Basically, Toronto in Canada, having been an executive for a Canadian firm, is very progressive. They realized through a variety of studies, very similar topography to TVA, a lot of hydro, that it is cheaper to do on-site generation, distributed energy, and pay for a portion of that than to create these substations. And so from an economic perspective, that's a lessons learned. We can look just a little bit north of our border, and OP has a lot of good data up there. But this is an example of somebody in the, I don't know, they sell to Walmart, Kmart, all those places, trinkets, little junk. Chemical plant owned by a Japanese firm. It is in the Tennessee Valley, but the sovereign nation of Japan owns the land. So if you see the price point, the payback is there is a 10% tax credit, federal tax credit. If you are a sovereign nation in our country, you don't get that benefit. So that's why the payback's a little bit higher. The data center is, there's actually two very, very similar, Sacramento and can't remember the second one, but both of them are California. We have, typically what happens, if I can brag on ES, once you get one location, they give us all of them. So data center, auto dealers, eventually they come back to us and say, what's next? What would be the best place to go? And it's always based on economics. The better solution, we think, is the sun. Sun produces no carbon footprint. This is a little bit a tease. Now, when I think of Walmart, I probably think very similar stereotypes as you. I don't think of them as an environmental company. However, they are putting solar roofs on twice as fast as the next guy, which happens to be Kohl's. Kohl's was number 4 before. You can see of the top 10, I think 7 or 8 of them are discount big box stores. So what do they know that we don't know? Well, let me give you a couple examples from a financial equation. Is most of that solar is being produced at about 4 cents a kWh. So if you're paying a 6 or 7 cents kWh, I've got a great solar roof for you. If you're replacing a roof, the IRS has given some leeway to have the racking system of the roof itself and the cost thereof to be part of that equation. So what do they know? Are they environmentalists, or are they risk managers and good cost control individuals, right? That's where I think their proposition is. So the dichotomy between environmental solutions and wise finances doesn't exist. They are one and the same in many, many ways. Not looking over at some of the doctors, not to consider all the health benefits of doing this. The bottom graph basically is we are at about 4 cents for 50,000 square feet or more rooftops. Our biggest proposal right now, which probably will be turnkeyed in Georgia, is about 5.7 megawatts, about 1 million square feet roofing. But 2016 is going to be here before you know it. There are some strategic things from a financial perspective that will keep the business going through, October, when your extensions of tax returns have to be completed. So 2017 will be good. But basically, price points will be going up, and it will take a couple, 2-3 years after that. I'm not advocating for more free money at this point. I'm just saying these are just the facts. They may be extended. That's policy, not practice. Some success stories. Another Toronto office warehouse, in particular, it's a little bit more expensive up there for because of the less incentives that they have, at least the current incentives. This is a Dalton, Georgia carpet factory. We're working with a few manufacturers there. The rural factory happens to be Maine. That's the one that I told you that is 105%. Of course, we don't think that'll occur, but it's when you have that many grants available, it's really tough not to make the numbers work. You probably should notice. I'll mention this. Lighting. Lighting incandescence, as you can see on the bottom, is a little filament. This graph give you a little bit. That was discovered in 1802. So we're being a little wisecracks here. You know, look at your technology. You're 200 years old. TVA's whole infrastructure is 100 years old. You know, we're a little dated. Just saying. Think about. This is a little bit of again why I'm in this field, and I gave up what I did. Is I think the movie has been played very similar to the telecom, right? Look at our phones. 100 years ago, what did that phone look like compared to now? And I think the energy space is about to hit that same pathway. Very, very similar. The blue line is how long those lights will last. Incandescent, you can't even put it on the chart. The red graph is the lumens per watt. So Cree, Orion Manufacturing, and there's another small one that is probably not a bankable solution, small manufacturer in Georgia, that are north of 150 lumens per watt. So those are real. They're real manufacturers, real lights. So that's a maybe 60 par light. You know, we can save 80% of the energy of that one light right there. So to put some drama into it, if I take a metal halide, which is 85 lumens per watt, and I replace it with TH, which people somehow think are new and innovative, they're not, or with LED and motion detectors, that one light will save $2,000 approximately in 10 years, or about $200 a year, one light. If I go to T8, if I do motion detectors LED, it'll be about $3,200, $3,300 in a 10-year period. Those are economics. That makes sense. They're real. Give you a little bit of secret sauce here. This is a C-store. We work, our smallest job was a little restaurant, $1,800, 50% payback. Just changing out these bulbs right here, by the way. I love this. We're in an energy, well, anyway, I won't say anything. I won't pick on Vanderbilt, but just an observation. You know, we work with New Americans are an incredibly challenging, doubtful. I mean, in America, we trust our institutions. We have not, you know, compared to the world. Now, granted, we are critical of our own institutions, but TVA is a good company with a lot of good people, right? We make pot shots at TVA a little bit sometimes, but the reality is it's a wonderful place. Bill Johnson is probably the right person at the right time, truth of the matter. So do not hear any bashing at all. We do it kind of as a sport, right? And you guys can do that back to me as well. The rest of the world are very doubtful. And I'll give you a great case in point. I worked with AIG in Moscow. We had about 2% of the life insurance market. When I arrived 3 years later, we had about 33% of the market. Why? Because Russians will trust an American company hands over any Russian company. Right? In general, we try to do what is right and we try to speak the truth. So C-stores, as you probably know, are becoming more and more New Americans. So anytime I get a quote from a New American that they like us, that's gold, because I worked really hard to get, we worked, yes, the pronouns, we. There's a C-store. It gives multiple solutions. There are at least 3 or 4 solutions to the refrigeration elements to it. There is lighting in the refrigeration in the store, the canopies, the outdoor lighting. We have a solar solution for the canopies. That has a real risk conversation to it, right? When bad things happen, you know, people like to at least have places of light. I tell my wife, my daughter's 13, I don't care if you pay 10, 15 cents more a gallon, you go to a place that you're safe. Because there's certain things that, you know, if it doesn't look safe, go keep driving. Find a gas station that those are the conversations we're talking with the C-stores. You want to be well lit. But you don't want to pay $5,000 a month for your utility bill. That's silly, right? Let's cut that in half, but be more lit. The other interesting thing, Hazan noticed, Craig's a little bit newer, is he is selling more product because it's better lit. Now, I don't put any of that into my energy calculations, but it's real. There is, from your displays, you can sell more product. I need to move faster. Here's auto dealers, same thing. We've done a variety of different types. It models very, very similar. Different utility loads than a C-store. This is a new brochure. You saw the top part, the bottom part is basically trying to hit realtors, commercial realtors. People are in buying and selling mode when they're selling, fixing up their place to turn it, or when they just buy it. So we talk about market cap. If I do a project for $400, 25% ROI, it's $100 element, right? A PE ratio or market cap ratio is maybe 10 times. In our region, on average, it's 7 to 12, but 10 times it's $1,000 improvement. They're making $600 on that project, and they're turning a building. Now, the utilities probably won't like that because their motivation isn't energy efficiency, but the markets demand this stuff. I don't. Here's just some general success stories. If you do want my contact information, I do have these out in the back, and you can look at those. Do I have 2 minutes or a minute? 1 minute. Couple asks. If you're this is not the business, this is Dan LeVan. If you are a professor and you're tenured, you can mix it up a little bit. Stanford did a great job of doing this in California. Vanderbilt, I'd love it if Vanderbilt could mix it up a little bit. Right now, policyholders, what I noticed sometimes is policyholders in the state that we elect or appoint defer to TVA. That's not. They're different, right? And so it's not, well, what are you going to do because you produce 99.7%? I don't know what if we did 20% green energy? And we could do that. We can make the numbers work. So I'd love policyholders who are in the room. Just because TVA does most of the energy does not mean that's our answer as well. And the last ask is business owners. It's nice to own. It is policies that need to change. My perspective individually, not as a company, it's very difficult to get integrated with the TVA grid. It is far more difficult in this utility than most places up and down the East Coast. They do not have bidirectional meters. Georgia did that. They were worse ranked than we were, and they are now the 10th, the fastest growing solar, and the 10th best ranked on the one ranking, mainly because of the green energy. So there are little things. We're not asking, it doesn't have to be free money. And allow owners to decide whether or not they want to own it, lease it, or otherwise. Right now, the only option you have in Tennessee is you own it. All the money, and I have a lot of money that would love to invest in solar on Tennessee roofs, they can't because they're afraid of the monopolistic rights that TVA has. So again, I'm not bashing TVA, but those are real policy changes that need to occur. And I think it's un-American to not allow people to own their own energy if they want. I mean, it seems kind of crazy, I think. That's it.